I remember the mornings when I'd wake up feeling that familiar knot in my stomach, the one that starts tight and only tightens as I scroll through social media. Everywhere I looked, there was someone else living what seemed like a perfect life. Luxury cars, exotic vacations, clothes that scream success. And honestly, despite knowing deep down that I shouldn't compare myself, I couldn't stop. It was like an itch I couldn't scratch, a voice whispering that I was falling behind, that I wasn't enough, that I'd never catch up to them. Every post, every snapshot seemed to magnify my feelings of inadequacy and scarcity. I'd find myself thinking, why isn't my life like that? Why do I struggle so much while others seem to have it all figured out? At first, I convinced myself it was normal, just human nature to compare. But over time, I realized it was much more sinister than that. Comparing became a shield I used to hide my own insecurities, but it also became a wall blocking my progress. The more I looked outside myself for validation, the more I felt like I was trapped in a race I couldn't win, running faster but never reaching the finish line. It's like I was chasing a mirage, thinking that if I just had more, achieved more, or looked like them, then I'd truly be happy. But no matter how much I gained, the feeling of lack persisted. My mind was stuck in this relentless loop of wanting, wishing, measuring my life by someone else's yardstick. And that's when I started to see the damage. Every time I compared, I literally sent a message to my subconscious that I was in scarcity, that I believed there was never enough, that the universe's abundance was something I couldn't tap into. That's when I realized comparison isn't just a harmless habit, but a direct blockade for money, for happiness, for growth. It's the subtle but powerful way we tell ourselves, I don't have enough, without even realizing it. That kind of thinking turns really good energy into resistance, shutting down the flow of prosperity I so desperately wanted. When I felt envious or judged myself against someone else's success, I was actually pushing my own opportunities further away. It's as if my mind and my money were connected in a dance, and comparison was like a heavy anchor keeping me from moving forward. But then, something clicked. Imagine a different way of seeing things. Imagine what could happen if I stopped measuring my life against others and instead turned inward, focusing on my own purpose, my own growth, my unique path. The more I started practicing gratitude for what I had, for what was unfolding in my life, and aligning my energy with my true desires, the more I felt a shift. It's like I reprogrammed my mind from scarcity to abundance, and suddenly, that inner voice that used to tell me I was falling behind started to fade. I began to understand that prosperity isn't about having more than others, but about becoming more of who I truly am. And that change in perspective, releasing the grip of comparison, created space for opportunities, for flow, for real growth. So that's where I want to start this journey with you today, because I know how it feels to wake up every day feeling you're not enough or that life is somehow unfair. I've been there, and I've felt that frustration deep in my bones. But I've also experienced firsthand how a shift in mindset, a different focus, can transform this endless tug-of-war inside our minds. What if I told you that your relationship with money and prosperity can change completely, simply by realizing that the game isn't about measuring up to someone else, but about discovering and aligning with your own true abundance? It's possible, and I want to show you how to start that transformation. Because the truth is, your power to change your financial reality isn't outside of you. It's within your mind, your heart, and the energy you choose to send out into the universe every day. And this is just the beginning of unlocking that power. One evening, as I sat quietly reflecting, I noticed how frequently I would gauge my worth by external standards that had little real meaning. It dawned on me that comparing had become an unconscious habit, like a default setting in my mind that kept me tethered to a false sense of inadequacy. I'd get caught up thinking, if only I had their opportunities, or why does my journey look so different from theirs? These thoughts didn't just drain my energy, they actively dismantled my confidence in my ability to manifest abundance. This process wasn't driven solely by a desire for material success. It was rooted in deeper fears around not being good enough or not belonging. When I would find myself in self-judgment, the subconscious message was that I was incomplete or missing out. Ironically, this mindset created an internal environment tuned to scarcity, almost as if my mind was constantly broadcasting, I lack, which then attracted more situations reinforcing that belief. Conversely, I started to see how shifting focus could serve as a powerful antidote. Instead of fixating on what I lacked, I learned to tune into the specific qualities I genuinely admired in people, qualities I actually wanted to cultivate in myself. For example, I observed the ease with which some carried themselves, confidence, grace, and clarity, rather than their possessions. This subtle change in perspective became a tool to redirect my energy from envy towards inspiration. It was like choosing a different radio station, one that broadcasted signals of possibility rather than scarcity. Furthermore, I became aware that the real barrier wasn't the actions of others, but my own internal dialogue about what I believed was attainable. When my thoughts turned to leakage points, such as doubts about deserving or fears of failure, I could trace them back to core belief systems rooted in childhood or past experiences. These beliefs often act like invisible filters, coloring every situation and conversation. If I hold the core idea that wealth is scarce or that success is reserved for a select few, I am unconsciously aligning myself with a reality that confirms those ideas. Yet, I discovered that these mental filters can be reprogrammed. Reassessing my thought patterns was key. I began to dismantle limiting assumptions by intentionally replacing them with empowering statements, affirmations that reinforced a mindset of abundance. For instance, instead of saying, "I can't afford that," I learned to frame it as, "There are unlimited opportunities for me to attract financial growth." These affirmations didn't just sound good. They reconditioned my subconscious by flooding it with positive, high-vibration beliefs. Over time, I noticed a shift in how I perceived challenges. Instead of insurmountable barriers, I saw them as opportunities for growth, learning, and new pathways. Another insight that changed my perspective involved understanding how energy flows. Imagine a river. If you clog its course with debris, the water pools or gets diverted. Similarly, when I focus on what I want to create, whether it's financial stability, freedom, or fulfillment, I set my mental channels in motion. But if I keep redirecting my attention to lack or worry, I am inadvertently blocking the current. This is why cultivating a full sense of certainty, trusting that my desires are already on their way, becomes essential. It shifts the current in my favor, allowing ideas, opportunities, and resources to flow into my life effortlessly. Building on this, I recognize that social media and societal narratives often serve as reservoirs of comparison. Observing highlight reels of curated success leads us to forget that every person's journey involves unseen struggles and setbacks. The false perception that others' lives are flawless only fuels dissatisfaction. As I internalized the truth that everyone is on their own unique path, I became less inclined to make immediate judgments based on appearances. Instead, I embraced my progress and focused on cultivating gratitude for the small wins, knowing they build the foundation for more significant achievements. Ultimately, I discovered that inverting the habit of comparison isn't merely a matter of willpower, but a deliberate commitment to self-awareness. It's about catching myself mid-thought and consciously choosing a different story. When I no longer see my worth through the lens of external validation, I open the door to a world where abundance naturally resides. This shift transforms the internal dialogue from one of longing and lack to a steady drumbeat of confidence and appreciation. And in that space, the universe begins to respond not with mirages, but with tangible, aligned opportunities that fulfill my deepest desires. As I started to observe my tendencies more closely, I realized that many of my beliefs about wealth originated from a narrative I accepted long ago, one that told me abundance was scarce, reserved for the fortunate few. This story, often planted in childhood or reinforced through societal conditioning, acted as a mental cage I instinctively believed I couldn't escape. But deep down, I knew that my constraints were rooted in perception, not reality. Recognizing this was crucial, because transformation begins with awareness that what I perceived as limitations are simply illusions waiting to be dissolved. If I could rewrite the story I told myself about what I was capable of attracting, I could open pathways that previously felt closed. Now, consider how this mindset influences your daily decisions. When I viewed my financial situation as a fixed state, something determined by external factors, I unconsciously limited my actions. I waited for some magical windfall or external validation to change my circumstances. That created a sense that my financial growth depended on luck or chance, which only reinforced feelings of helplessness. But when I shifted my perspective and started emphasizing personal agency, everything changed. I saw that I could actively influence my reality by restoring my belief in my deservingness and taking intentional steps to align with prosperity. This isn't about forcing outcomes, but about adjusting my mental orientation to see possibilities where I once saw obstacles. Another vital realization came from understanding that heightening my awareness of my thoughts and emotions allowed me to catch myself before falling into old patterns. Sometimes, I'd notice a sudden surge of anxiety or a fleeting notion that I wasn't enough. Instead of suppressing those feelings, I learned to accept them and examine their origin. That moment of mindfulness gave me the power to break the cycle. For example, if I caught myself thinking, I don't have the resources, I could actively choose a different narrative, such as, resources are flowing to me in unexpected ways. Small yet deliberate reframing acted like a mental detox, clearing cluttered beliefs that kept me tethered to scarcity. Building on this, I started to realize that maintaining an elevated vibration requires consistent mental discipline. It's similar to tending a garden. Weeds of doubt and worry can quickly take over if we're not vigilant. I learned that daily practices, such as visualization, gratitude, and affirmations, are like nourishing nutrients that strengthen the roots of abundance within. When I intentionally cultivated feelings of gratitude for what I already had, I boosted my energetic frequency. This wasn't about superficial positivity, but about genuinely appreciating my current state as a magnet for more good to enter my life. The more I submerged myself in appreciation, the less room there was for negativity or comparison to thrive. Furthermore, a new perspective emerged when I recognized how deeply connected my thoughts and emotions are to my external reality. Every time I allowed myself to indulge in feelings of lack or frustration, I was essentially sending out a signal that I was prepared to attract more circumstances reinforcing those same sentiments. Conversely, when I felt genuine excitement about future possibilities and visualized myself in abundance, I created a vibrational match for those experiences. It became apparent that my internal landscape acts like a blueprint for what manifests outside. Learning to monitor and shift my emotional state became not just a spiritual practice, but a strategic one, vital for intentionally shaping my financial future. Often, I'd ask myself, what story am I telling right now about what is possible? If it was one of limitation, I paused and reevaluated. This became a crucial tool in my arsenal, empowering me to flip narratives that once felt rooted in hopelessness. When I caught myself believing, I'll never get ahead, I replaced that with, every day, I am moving closer to my highest potential. In doing so, I began to see how making small tweaks, consistently, had profound effects over time. Building resilience in my beliefs allowed positivity and abundance to more easily anchor into my reality. And as I did this repeatedly, I noticed my mindset gradually aligning with the energy of wealth, attraction, and effortless flow. It's a process of continuous refinement, an ongoing journey of redefining what's possible and shifting from scarcity to sustained abundance. Once I realized that my inner dialogue acts like a magnet shaping the quality of my reality, I understood that mastering my thoughts is like cultivating a fertile field. If I plant seeds of doubt, worry, or feeling unworthy, I harvest a crop of stagnation and scarcity. However, if I deliberately nurture beliefs of abundance, trust, and confidence, I invite prosperity to blossom naturally. This process requires vigilant attention to the messages I send out into my subconscious. It's as if I'm tending a garden of my internal landscape, carefully removing the weeds of negative assumptions and replacing them with vibrant, life-giving affirmations. Every thought has the potential to set the foundations for future results. Now, consider how this principle applies when facing setbacks. Instead of viewing obstacles as insurmountable walls, I learned to see them as signs pointing me toward new directions. Adversity isn't simply a barrier, it's a catalyst for growth if I interpret it correctly. When I encounter a challenge, I ask myself, what lesson is this situation offering? How does it serve my bigger picture? Turning difficulties into stepping stones shifted my perspective from feeling victimized to feeling empowered. This mindset shift creates a fresh flow, allowing me to see possibilities that previously appeared hidden behind a veil of frustration. It's about recognizing that every circumstance can be a portal to a greater understanding and exponential expansion if I refuse to accept a limited definition of my reality. At the same time, I discovered that anchoring into a sense of purpose becomes a vital anchor amid the waves of doubt. Authentic fulfillment isn't derived solely from external achievements, but from aligning daily actions with core values. When I focus on serving a higher mission, whether it's empowering others, creating beauty, or expressing authenticity, I elevate my vibrational state. This internal alignment activates a magnetic pull, attracting resources, ideas, and relationships that accelerate my progress. In my journey, I noticed that the clearer I was about my unique contribution, the less I relied on external validation to feel worthy. And with that clarity came a deep sense of security, knowing that my efforts are shaping a meaningful legacy, regardless of how fast or slow the financial resources flow in. Building on this, I began to see the importance of creating mental resilience. Staying steady in the face of uncertainty is an art that involves training my focus to stay fixed on what I want, not on what I fear. When I catch myself obsessing over potential lack or imagining worst-case scenarios, I consciously redirect my attention. I could almost visualize my mind as a personal command center. Every thought a command that either unlocks or locks the door to abundance. A powerful technique I used was to develop an inner dialogue that affirms my capacity to adapt and thrive. I am resourceful. Every challenge provides an opening for unexpected growth. These words act as emotional shields, preventing slightest doubts from sapping my energy. Over time, I conditioned my mind to embrace uncertainty as part of the process, knowing that perseverance and positive focus are key to aligning with prosperity. Another crucial layer lies in recognizing the energy I invest during moments of impatience or frustration. In those instances, I notice that my vibration dips, and I unconsciously send out signals that I am unfulfilled or still lack something. This creates a feedback loop that prolongs the feeling of scarcity. Instead, I train myself to cultivate calm anticipation, visualizing my desired circumstances as if they are already manifesting. The sensation of gratitude in advance is incredibly potent because it signals to the subconscious that I am in harmony with abundance. I learned to embrace a kind of inner sovereignty, where trusting that my desires are on their way becomes a steady affirmation I revisit daily. When I truly believe in the natural timing of things, I stop rushing, second-guessing, or becoming overly anxious. The more I surrender to this flow, the smoother the path becomes, and synchronicities start appearing in ways I never expected. It's essential to acknowledge that shifting to this higher state isn't a one-time effort. It's an ongoing practice, like tuning an instrument until every note resonates perfectly. Each internal conversation, each moment of deliberate focus, compounds into a state of more coherent vibration. As I deepen into this understanding, I no longer see setbacks as failures, but as opportunities to refine my energetic signature. When I genuinely accept that abundance flows when I align my thoughts, feelings, and purpose, I free myself from the trap of mental resistance. It's about developing an unwavering trust that I'm guided toward the right circumstances at the right time, in the right way, regardless of appearances momentarily suggesting otherwise. This mental shift transforms my entire experience, allowing an effortless, natural flow to carry my aspirations into reality. Reflecting on this journey so far, I realize how deeply interconnected each insight has been in shaping the shift I experienced. At each turn, I found myself peeling back layers of conditioning, discovering that the stories I believed about lack and limitation weren't fixed truths, but constructs I could unlearn. It's like I'd been navigating through a dense fog, mistaking shadows for reality, only to discover that by adjusting my perspective, clarity emerged naturally. When I began to see beyond surface appearances, I realized the landscape of my mind was the real terrain where change had to take root. I started understanding that building a new reality isn't about a sudden overhaul, but about the subtle art of recalibrating my internal compass. Every thought, emotion, and focus acts as a catalyst, shaping the horizon of possibilities I believe are within reach. These internal shifts, while seemingly small, accumulate momentum and sculpt a new environment where abundance becomes not just a distant hope, but an accessible state of being. It's akin to cultivating a garden. Sometimes it's just the next small act of kindness, gratitude, or trust that begins to loosen the soil, allowing seeds of prosperity to sprout. What I was learning is that consistent care and deliberate intention are what transform mere potential into tangible reality. This cultivated awareness opened doors to recognizing how my internal narrative influences every decision I make. The inner dialogue I engage in colors my interpretation of events, my responses, and ultimately my life's trajectory. When I grasped that my mindset is like a lens, capable of amplifying or distorting the signals I send, everything started making more sense. If I want my outer world to shift, I must first attend to the vibrational frequency I emit. That realization prompted me to become more mindful of my state of being, not just in moments of calm, but amidst chaos, doubt, or frustration. It's in these fluctuations that the opportunity for transformation reveals itself, urging me to anchor back into a sense of sovereignty and trust. As I moved through this process, I saw that steeping myself in purpose had the power to anchor me even more firmly in a space of abundance. When my actions aligned with an authentic vision, one rooted in service, growth, and self-expression, I noticed an effortless flow that didn't rely on forcing outcomes, but instead fostered organic opportunities. It's as if my energy responded to the subtle signals I sent and drew back those frequencies in kind. This realization made me understand that genuine fulfillment isn't derived solely from accomplishments, but from a state of alignment, an active participation in the creative process of my life. With this mindset, each moment beckoned new possibility, like a river seeking its own course, guided by an unseen but felt pull that knew where it needed to go. And then, there was the vital awareness of how perception and emotion work together, creating a tapestry of reality that I influence continuously. The shifting waves of thought shape the rhythm of my day, and every pattern I establish either fortifies my connection to abundance or reinforces a sense of struggle. It's no longer about waiting for some external sign to tell me I've arrived, but about learning how to dance with my own energy, adjusting steps, clearing the clutter of doubt, and trusting that the music of prosperity plays within me. I began to see that each deliberate choice adds a brushstroke to the masterpiece I am actively creating, held together by the faith that I am always moving toward what I desire, even if the path isn't immediately visible. Thinking back, I realized what truly unlocked this evolution was the recognition that my inner state is the foundation upon which all else is built. When I stopped trying to control circumstances and instead focus on cultivating harmony within, I create a powerful resonance that naturally attracts the opportunities meant for me. The tension I once felt, from striving and comparison, dissolved as I leaned into this deeper understanding. Now, there's a gentle patience that guides me, a sense that living in alignment isn't a race but a dance, one that I choose consciously. And with each step, I am discovering that the universe isn't withholding its riches, but simply waiting for me to recognize my own readiness to receive, if only I trust enough to turn my attention inward and surrender to the flow. In this unfolding awareness, I've come to see that every moment holds potential, an invitation to refine, to align, and to deepen my understanding. The process of transformation becomes far less about fixing what's broken and more about awakening to what's already present within. As I continue to tune into the subtle signals silently guiding me, I realize that the greatest shift is happening precisely in how I perceive myself and my role within this vast, abundant universe. The more I embrace that perspective, the more I feel prepared to step fully into the experience of prosperity, knowing that it's not a distant destination, but a natural extension of my growth. This perspective, rooted in trust and surrender, prepares me for the next chapter, one where possibilities no longer feel out of reach, but are activated by an inner state of unwavering knowing. As I reflect on everything I've come to understand, I realize that true transformation lies not in external circumstances, but within the very core of how I perceive myself and my role in creating reality. The endless cycle of comparison and perceived scarcity begins to fade when I recognize my personal power isn't dictated by others' successes or societal standards. Instead, it's rooted in an internal shift, an awakening to the fact that I am the origin of my experience. When I stop measuring my worth against external benchmarks, I reclaim my energy and place it where it truly belongs, in aligning with my vision and purpose. This deeper awareness reveals a profound truth. Abundance is not something to chase after or attain after overcoming obstacles, but a quality available in every moment, waiting patiently for me to acknowledge it. It's like a vast ocean stretched out within, inviting me to dive in with confidence instead of tiptoeing along the shoreline of doubt. Once I embrace this, I see that my feelings and thoughts act as ripples sending vibrations into the fabric of reality. The language I choose, the images I hold, they all contribute to shaping a landscape that either affirms unworthiness or celebrates divine flow. Understanding this dynamic invites a gentle, yet powerful responsibility. I am responsible for the stories I tell myself, stories that either imprison or liberate. I realize that my doubts and worries aren't merely fleeting moments of weakness, but signals that my focus has wandered far from my authentic truth. The moment I recognize this divergence, I can intentionally pivot and direct my inner dialogue toward empowerment. Cultivating feelings of gratitude, envisioning success, and trusting in the process aren't distant ideals. They become daily anchors that steady me amid shifting conditions. In this practice lies the secret. The consistent reaffirmation of the belief that I'm worthy of wealth and fulfillment acts as a magnet for experiences that resonate with that truth. It's interesting how, in this awakening, I begin to see setbacks as opportunities rather than failures. Challenges no longer appear as barriers, but as invitations to deepen my trust and refine my focus. Every moment of doubt becomes a chance to dig deeper into my resilience and realize that perseverance is itself a catalyst for manifestation. Remaining open to possibilities fosters a sense of harmony and expectation, an understanding that what I seek is already aligning with my intentions, even if I haven't yet seen tangible proof. The recognition that the process is gradual and that patience and belief are intertwined transforms frustration into a quiet confidence rooted in faith that avenues will open at the right time. Ultimately, the most powerful insight I've gained involves the recognition that I am continuously co-creating my reality. There's a natural flow that responds to the energy I emit, an invisible current I can choose to strengthen or weaken through thought and feeling. When I cultivate a belief that abundance is my birthright, my entire experience begins to shift. Opportunities appear unexpectedly, inspiration flows effortlessly, and the sense of inner peace deepens. This inner harmony becomes a foundation for outside expressions of prosperity, an energetic resonating that invites abundance into every aspect of my life. Knowing this, I feel a quiet excitement for what is yet to come because I understand that the process isn't external but internal. A shift in perspective results in a ripple effect that extends far beyond what I could have imagined. I am reminded of how every moment offers a choice: to reinforce scarcity or to embrace abundance, to dwell in worry or celebrate the flow of prosperity that's always present. It's a gentle reminder that my power lies in where I focus my attention, how I nurture my inner state, and my willingness to trust that my desires are unfolding in perfect timing. When I align with this truth, I step into a space where life becomes less of a struggle and more a harmonious dance, a continual awakening to the limitless potential within. The journey continues, but I now walk it with a profound sense of knowing that everything I seek has always been part of me, waiting patiently for me to claim it beyond doubts and comparisons.